All right. Well, we're gonna get started. People are still rolling in here, but we were just kind of hanging out, before the session. But we're a minute past the hour, so as people are coming in, we'll welcome them in. But I appreciate everybody being here. This is the first of a six-part AI in Action series. This one's featuring Gazelle and Celtra, one of our platinum sponsors for the Marketing AI conference. The concept behind this series, and I'll introduce Gazelle in a second, but the concept behind this series was we were going to just do it as part of an AI in Action series at our Marketing AI conference, which is September 13th and 14th. It's a virtual event. But then we realized, like, one of the challenges of the whole virtual event space is, like, no one actually ever really gets a chance to interact with the sponsors, and they don't really get to chance to see how the AI, the technology, actually works. So we came up with this idea of, like, well, what if we just made this AI in Action part of it an advanced thing? What if we did these as live events that anyone could come to? It's free. This part of it is free. You don't have to pay to attend the event to see these. And it gives people a chance to actually get educational sessions about AI and how it works with specific applications. And then if they're interested, then, come on and join us at the conference and learn more. But at minimum, it gives people this chance over the next 2 weeks to really interact with the technology vendors, learn more about it. But it's not about, they're not product demos. This isn't meant to sell you on Celtra or any of the other, brands we're going to feature. It's a chance for you to actually learn how the tech works, how it does what it does, and be able to ask questions specifically about that. So Gazelle, if you want to go ahead and jump to the next slide. Today's session is about how to transform creative workflows with AI. And it's a really fascinating technology. What Celtra's doing in the digital ad space is incredible. And so when they had reached out to us a few months back about how can we collaborate, how can we partner, what are things we can do together, there's always those brands that jump out to you. It's like, okay, this is a very practical use case for AI, and it's a very tangible one for people to see. So I'm really excited about that. So next slide, the quick introduction. So I'm Paul Raitzer. If you're not familiar with me or what we do here, I'm the founder and CEO of the Marketing AI Institute and created the Marketing AI Conference, which we did in 2019, took a year off in 2020, and then we're back as a virtual conference in 2021. And I'm joined today by Gazelle Badio Zamani. Did I get that?
You did. Good job.
There. The Senior Vice President of Product Management at Celtra. And so if you joined us a little early and were listening in, because I was going into her background a little bit, but why don't you just kind of tell us that those last couple pieces there, Gazelle, kind of how you moved into the AI space and how you're using your education and experience to work with organizations to help them apply it.
Sure. Yeah. So I've spent the last 10 years thinking about how to apply artificial intelligence, machine learning in various industries. I worked across education, precision medicine, and pharmaceutical and content creation to think about how we can leverage technology to build better processes, to enable more personalized, contextualized delivery of content, and really ultimately with the goal of helping our end users do what they need to do in order to drive better outcomes, right? To help students learn, to help researchers find solutions faster, and to deliver content and automate production so that we're eliminating the low value tasks and freeing the humans to do the high value tasks that only they can do best.
And what I love, again, spending a little time together, it's really challenging to find people in the industry who can actually understand and build the AI, or it can be involved in the building of the AI and can explain it in a very approachable way. And so that's why I'm really excited about this session, because I already know that that's what people are going to take away from this, is truly that demystification of AI. Like it's not abstract, it's not overwhelming. It's a very practical technology that you can use in your business and your career. So thank you for being here, and we're looking forward to this. If you want to jump ahead, that as I mentioned, this is the first of 6. So what we're doing here is we're featuring our platinum and gold sponsors from the Marketing AI conference. We asked each of them to put together these educational sessions. So we have Celtra, Lilt, MarketMuse, Pandata, Persado, and Drift are all going to be doing sessions. And then if you want to jump to the next one, the schedule. So today we've got Celtra. Tomorrow on Wednesday, the 25th, is going to be designing ethical AI-powered marketing strategy with Pandata. We're going to have building a global customer experience with AI featuring Lilt. And then next week, same time every day, we will have drive language personalization at scale featuring Persado, creating content with AI featuring MarketMuse, and then closing it out with how to engage and qualify your website visitors with AI featuring Drift. If you want to, I think we have one more housekeeping slide here. If you didn't register for one, and after this session, you realize, I want to jump in and do it, you can use that bit.ly link. Now we will send out information. All of these are being recorded. You will have access to them on demand. So we'll communicate all this to you in a follow-up email as well. But you can interact with our team. We've got people ready to help on chat if you need support. We will have time for Q&A, or if you have a burning question as we're going and you want to ask it, I'll be watching that. I'm going to kind of, just sit back and listen to Gazelle's presentation as well. I might jump in and ask some questions because there's a lot of things I saw already in this presentation I'm really intrigued to learn more about. But for the most part, we're just going to sit back, listen to Gazelle, and then we'll have time for Q&A. But again, don't hesitate to reach out as we're going through it and ask questions. And I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gazelle to do her thing.
Great, thank you, Paul. Let's see. So thank you, Paul, and both Kathy too for organizing this and for inviting us to join you today. I'm super excited to share with you some of the things that we're doing at Celtra to help marketers transform the creative production process, and really ultimately with the goal of amplifying creativity. But before I dive in, I want to take you back to the desert, the Mojave Desert in the mid-aughts, where DARPA, as you all know, DARPA is a part of the Department of Defense that funds super cutting edge research, has put on this grand challenge. And this is the first grand challenge of many more to come. And teams have been invited from across the country to submit the very first, what we now know of as autonomous vehicles. And there are 3 teams of note. So team number 1 is completely reliant on their machine. They've built a computer that they think works brilliantly, and they're going to let their machine run and just watch from the sideline. The second team is much more human focused. So they've built a vehicle, a machine that can run, but they're going to be doing all the computations and problem solving from the sidelines as the machine goes through the track. And then the third team is this hybrid team. So they've built a machine that can do a lot of different kinds of computations, but they are going to be working actively with their machine through the course of the race to solve problems that as they are encountered. So let's do a quick poll. Who do you think is going to win the race? The machine-only team, the human-only team, or the human plus machine team?
And I was, as people were voting, I was talking with Gazelle beforehand. If you're really fascinated in the very far edges of AI and what's possible, there's an incredible book called The Pentagon's Brain, which talks about the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, and the things they've been doing with AI and where the roadmap may lead to. And it's a pretty remarkable story. So I wouldn't start, if you're just getting started with AI, I would not read The Pentagon's Brain as the first book. But once you've kind of progressed through and you're ready for, the real stuff, The Pentagon's Brain is a fascinating story. So, okay, I'm going to end the poll now and we will share the results.
All right, great. So most of you thought that it's the human and machine that won the race, and you would be right. It seems kind of obvious now after 15 years of talking about AI and computer-human interactions. We've sort of come to realize that that is the best model. But for me, at that time, this was a big aha moment. And I really started to think about how can we create these models of humans and machines working together to drive better outcomes. And so, as I mentioned before, I spent almost a decade thinking about this problem and how it can be applied in different ways. And at Celtra, we really take this philosophy to heart, right? We believe that the humans are the most capable of being creative, of driving creativity, and that the software can automate the drudgery, automate all those low value tasks that don't require a lot of human insight, so that people can focus on creating connection, on delivering emotion, everything that makes a marketing campaign human and ultimately successful. Right? So a machine can go through and figure out how to size something to be the right format for a particular channel. A machine can make sure that the color contrast is appropriate for the screen. But it's only the human member of the team that can create the content that makes the reader smile, that really drives the connection and makes the ad sing. So while AI enables the speed and the scale and the opportunity to iterate in order to learn what's most effective in each individual channel, it's the humans that ensure the quality, the attunement, the maybe a little bit of provocation or humor that ultimately drives impact and builds long-term brand equity. So I'll dive a little bit, tell you a little bit more about how we do all of that. So as marketing organizations are building opportunities for reaching consumers across broader and broader number of digital channels, we see a need for creating content that is in the right size for the appropriate channel, that uses different layouts or designs, that swaps in different assets, different images, that can be deployed across multiple markets and languages. And our solution helps teams create all of that variety with just a few clicks. And at the same time, we have collaboration tools that help teams to work better, more efficiently together to really drive scale.
Because one of the things I just note on that slide, and I think sort of becomes a theme throughout, is a lot of what Celtra is doing, a lot of what AI enables is intelligent automation of repetitive processes. So I look at those four things and I see a massive amount of manual repetitive processes that would traditionally go into making these things possible. And so it seems like what you're doing is like looking for ways to apply AI in an outcome that reduces repetitive processes where humans are required to do the same thing over and over and over again. So if you can define something with a process, there's a chance AI can help you do it more efficiently.
Exactly. That's exactly right. I mean, the building out different sizes or layouts was manageable in a world where we just had a few channels, right? TV and print. But as we have more and more and more digital channels, more ways to have direct contact with the consumer, the demand for variation and for variety, and also for personalization and contextualization really increases. And so for a brand to be able to really drive long-term brand equity and have impact to achieve business objectives, they need to be delivering more content with more variety. With each set of variations activated for a particular purpose or objective. And we're using AI to do that, to give all the options to the marketing team that they can then deploy in the best way possible. And we have some customers that have really been able to drive great success with using our tool. So Spotify is one of our very early customers, and they are a fairly centralized team that also leverages agencies quite a bit, but they wanted to significantly expand their reach. And that meant launching 4 times as much content and having the production time, right? And we were able to do that with them using our tool. Adidas is another one of our very valued customers. And they had a very similar problem. They wanted to build a very broad range of variants in order to serve local markets. And they wanted to be able to ensure brand governance from global to local. And so our tool was able to help both create that variety as well as create that connection with the local markets, and that essentially serve as a communication tool. And then Yeti is a little bit different from Adidas and from Spotify. They're a smaller marketing team and they do more of their work in-house. But what they wanted to do was create a lot of variety and then be able to change one thing in one ad and have it propagate across. So we were able to do that for them as well. And most of our customers are very shy, and so I don't want to share the details of a specific campaign that we did with any of them. So I created this sort of mock customer called Hannah, but it's very representative. It's of our typical customer set. So Hannah is a global enterprise with a global footprint, and they want to create more and more assets in order to serve different objectives. But the team of designers, they consider themselves to be craftsmen. They're they want everything to be pixel perfect, and they're very concerned about the details and the quality of the advertising that's being produced. And so in this particular campaign, they want to run ads across 12 channels. That means they're going to need 12 formats and 12 sizes. They have 2 different designs that they want to use. They have 3 different images that they want to swap out within these designs. And they want the ads to be created across 29 languages to be used in multiple markets. So all that together means that they need more than 2,000 creatives. So, as I mentioned, they're very particular. And one of the problems that they have pinpointed is that they want their text to flow well, right? They want the lines of the text to be broken in a way that makes sense, and particularly to highlight specific things like this 30 days. And so, with Celtra, they're able to build in all of that. And we were able to help them manage these details that ultimately lend to high quality creative. So with this few clicks, they're able to create their thousands of variants and deploy them across all their channels with ease.
So in this case, because again, now you're thinking, okay, graphic designers. Either I am a graphic designer, I have a team that manages graphic designers. Is this something that previously just wouldn't happen? They just wouldn't create the 2,000 variants? Or was it something that they were spending hundreds of hours creating? So did we enable a whole new thing, or did we just intelligently automate something that previously took a ton of time?
I think it's both, right?
Okay.
So, we have some channels that have been around for a while, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter. And so for a marketing team to be able to take advantage of those channels, they had to resize everything. And so now what we're enabling them to do is to take advantage of those channels at much greater scale with much more frequency. So most teams don't have the resources required to be able to scale to this extent. And even leveraging an agency would be not viable because there's so much, it takes so much time for a human to resize everything. And it also just doesn't seem, it's not the most high value task, right? It's like the humans should be focusing on the beauty of the image or the engagement of the messaging. Resizing doesn't need to be something that takes up someone's full day.
Yeah, and while we're showing enterprise examples here, I mean, even small businesses where you're running 10, 20 variations of ads, it's still a significant investment of time to create variations, even if you're just doing Instagram and Facebook and the obvious ones. But then if you start expanding out, so yeah, I mean, you can see the use case actually being applicable regardless of size of business, as long as you're running digital advertising.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it seems like it's just for designers, but what we've found is that the tool is actually quite transformative. So we're completely transforming the way that teams work. driving efficiency. So let's just show you the numbers.
Yeah.
So we're, with in this particular campaign, Hannah was able to increase their creative volume by a magnitude of 4, right? So 4 times what the volume that they had been able to do before, while having the production cycle time. And then, because we provide tools for review and collaboration, they're actually able to reduce the review effort by 40%. And that means that they can now do more, right? That same team may have only been able to run 1 or 2 campaigns per year, but now they can run 4 times as many. Kind of life-changing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how our customers are using Celtra and the impact that they're finding and driving. I thought I'd also share with you a little bit about what we have in the pipes and the features that are still in development that we're working on now.
But I think I'll take a moment here, and I think one interesting thing that we'll learn, because the next section's awesome. What's happening in the marketing technology, advertising technology space is a lot of vendors have initial applications of AI built into their technology, but in many cases, it's very early in its application. And so we often teach people when they're buying new technology is you have to ask about the roadmap. Like, because a lot of this tech, a lot of language technology, a lot of vision technology, a lot of even predictive technology is relatively new in its application to marketing. It's often as important to know what the roadmap is and what the point of view on AI is from the vendor, because my concern is always when you go buy a key piece of your tech stack and their leadership team isn't even talking about AI. You can't find a roadmap anywhere. Their sales team and engineering team can't talk intelligently to you about how they're going to make the technology smarter. And that's the key thing to think about is AI just makes marketing technology smarter. So if you're going to run advertising or you're going to create content, you should be finding tools that make you smarter today and that have a roadmap for continually improving the software so that you keep getting better at your job. And I think that's what this next section is going to highlight for you, is to understand what vendors are building, and you can start to think about how that would integrate into what your team does.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're building is a smart auto cropping capability. So the idea here is to use computer vision to pinpoint the focal point of an image. So in this case, the face of the model, and then adjust the image depending on the size and shape of the ad. So let me just show you a quick video of how this would work. So here the user has brought up the image, but it's not sized quite right. There's making sure that it's the face that's the focus. And then here across all the different photos, the system is putting the focal point in the appropriate place in the ad and extending the background appropriately to fit the full size.
And she mentioned computer vision, if that's a new term to you. Again, the main things AI enables, we talk about like categories of application. There's language, which is like language understanding and generation and text summarization and text to speech and speech to text. It's all different ways to teach the machine to understand and create language, which it doesn't natively know how to do. And then vision is the other major category, which in a similar way is teaching the machine to see, to recognize objects, to identify images, to auto tag images. It doesn't know how to do that stuff. So computer vision is literally giving the computer, the machine, vision capabilities. Now, it doesn't see like you and I see, but it learns to identify and prioritize objects. And so that's what's happening here. That's the application of AI that you're seeing, which you see when you upload photos to Facebook and it automatically recognizes faces. This technology exists everywhere in your daily life. You often just don't realize that's what's happening in it.
That's right. And so the question for us is, how do we use that in a way that helps accomplish our goals, right? Helps our teams to do better work. And so here's another example of where we're using machine learning to help, and that's with automated ad sizes. So we found that our customers often will create a basic shape for an ad, but then they'll want to adjust the size for different formats, for different channels. And so what we've created is a capability that allows the designer to build the ad within the tool in different shapes, and then select different sizes for the same shape. And so we're selecting multiple sizes, and then with just a few clicks, the tool generates the ads in all the different sizes with appropriately adjusted content. And then in this case, the user wants to increase the size of the model, and so it does that, and that actually helps. We're tracking that and gathering that feedback so that next time around, the image will be made a little bit bigger.
And that concept is what we talk about with machine learning, where when you're using AI technology, one of the key differentiations between that and traditional technology is the machine gets smarter. And so when you apply machine learning to this kind of tech, then as the user provides feedback, it can learn from it. It's no different than what's happening when you're on Netflix and it learns the kinds of shows you watch, or when you're using Spotify and it learns the kind of music you watch, or when you're getting in your car and Apple Maps or Google Maps learns where you generally go at that time of day and it recommends a path to you. All of those things are made possible by machine learning. And again, that's one of the major differentiations with AI technology in anywhere you're going to use it in marketing and content and email and social and advertising, is that the machine should get smarter. And therefore, every time you're using it, it's making you better at your job without you having to necessarily go learn new capabilities.
And then finally, we're trying to figure out how to do an asset property detector. So this is for teams that are tired of product on white. So you can take a look at your product catalog, and the machine can automatically detect different properties of the asset. In this case, colors of the shoe, and then create a palette based on that color. So here we're just creating colors, and so the machine has identified colors that are available, it creates a palette, and then the designer can work with those colors.
And I would assume the cool thing here is it doesn't necessarily have to be a designer. Like,
yeah, anyone. Yeah,
people who aren't designers trying to design things. I know we use like Canva and beautiful.ai when we're doing presentation stuff. So we're trying to use tools for non-designers. So I could see this kind of thing where you don't have to be a graphic designer to actually apply it.
Yeah. And then really something that's close to my heart is driving more accessibility of advertising. So we can use AI and different natural language processing tools to auto-generate text transcripts for video and just have that overlaid on the video automatically, to create alternative text for images, so that someone who's visually impaired can have their computer describe the image to them that they can't see, and to provide more support for screen readers. Ultimately, with the goal of having all of the ads that are produced on Celtra to be fully ADA compliant. And this is a problem that a lot of our, speaking to, problems that are just, we know we have them, but we can't solve them. So we have customers now who are actually being fined, actively paying for not having their ads ADA compliant. But it's just the amount of work that would be required to make those ads compliant doesn't justify the cost. And so they'd rather pay the fine. They don't want to, but from a cost, it's just from a cost perspective, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're trying to automate these things so that all of our advertisers can be ADA compliant and ensure greater accessibility. And then I wanted to just take a minute to talk about onboarding and adopting tools like ours. So, we find we spend a lot of time thinking about usability and ease of use. And we want our customers to be able to adopt our tools, adopt our software, have very limited onboarding. Our goal is to have the less training, the better. We want it to just be intuitive so you could pick it up and just start using it. But at the same time, we find that the customers that have the most success with Celtra, that drive the most value out of Celtra, are those that use it as a catalyst for a much broader initiative, a much broader business objective. So a lot of our teams use Celtra and then completely transform their work process and their org structure because they find that if the efficiency that's generated from Celtra unlocks this value that can then be repurposed somewhere else. We also have seen Celtra be used to drive other sort of broader initiatives around gaining more local market share. So all of these things sort of speak to the need to think about adopting the tool within the context of a broader business strategy. And there's a lot of great research, as Paul mentioned before, around humans and computers and how they work together. And one is that I wanted to just note here is an article that was recently published by Harvard Business Review. And it's a pair of, I think Paul mentioned that Paul Doherty is the CTO of Accenture. And so they've seen a lot of different clients across a lot of different industries trying to use AI. What they found was that those teams that adopt certain principles are much more effective in delivering value and achieving their objectives. So they often use AI as an excuse to reimagine their business process. So, instead of just trying to plug it into an existing process, completely rethinking, as if you had a white sheet of paper, how you would design the process if you could in an idealistic way, and then using AI to drive that change. They embrace experimentation and most importantly, employee involvement. You want your employees to be engaged and to be thinking actively about how we can use this tool, how this tool could change the way that we work, right? And more stakeholder engagement sort of helps to resolve conflict.
Or get rid of the fear that they're going to lose their jobs because you're intelligently automating a bunch of things that they normally spend time doing.
Yeah, exactly. Essentially just completely diffuses this like Bloods versus Crips kind of antagonism that you might have in the workplace. And then, actively directing an AI strategy, right? So thinking about the business objective and then putting AI tools in place that are aligned with that objective. And then, of course, responsibly collecting data and redesigning work to incorporate AI. So, if you have employees that are now spending a lot of time creating those, that content variety, they will now be free to do that more high value work. So the job descriptions are going to change. And so the teams that actively think about that are able to drive much more success. So yeah, that's all. So, and so technology opens all these new channels, all these new opportunities to completely reimagine and rethink. For marketers, technology has expanded the reach of the brand and the opportunity to connect with consumers more directly. And what we at Celtra, we're trying to free the teams to focus on what really matters, right? That creating a more human connection that will ultimately drive impact. And that's all I have for you. So I'm happy to chat and answer questions.
That's great. Thank you. If you want to, let's flip through these last couple slides and then we'll turn off the deck and just talk. So again, if you're new to Marketing AI Institute, you can check out marketingainstitute.com. We've published probably 900 to 1,000 articles about artificial intelligence in every category and industry you can think of. So there's a lot of resources and information if you're just starting down your learning journey or trying to kind of advance digital transformation. And marketingacademy.ai is an online learning center with dozens of courses and certifications related to AI. So again, as you move down your learning journey, you may start looking for more formal education and training, and that's what we're building through Marketing AI Institute. And then on the last slide, so as we started the conversation, AI in Action is part of our Marketing AI conference. And I loved your last slide about the more human. That's actually the tagline of our conference: more intelligent, more human. It's how do we build more intelligent brands, create smarter marketing, but in the process, how do we take advantage of what remains uniquely human, and how do we redistribute the time saved into doing things that create more value for our stakeholders. And that's our whole premise. We're not trying to teach a bunch of hacks and shortcuts so people can reduce staff and save money. We're trying to teach a way to transform how marketing is done, to reduce the repetitive data-driven stuff that most marketers don't enjoy anyway, and to redistribute those resources into doing the things that are more fulfilling. So it's kind of like a grand vision for what's possible in the industry, but we think it can actually be achieved if enough marketers take an interest in AI and apply it in responsible ways. So if you haven't registered for the conference, we hope you do. There's a 25% off code here, and you can just go to macon.ai to learn more. You're not required to do that, obviously, to be a part of this AI in Action series, not only this one, but the upcoming 5. So we hope you at minimum join us for those. And with that, if you want to go ahead and stop the screen share, Gazelle, we'll take some questions. So no, I just lost my, okay. So we had one, so Kathy had commented as you were showing like the auto generation of ads. I wish I had that last week when I created 8 versions of creative times 12 sizes each. And somebody actually said, well, Kathy, what are you doing now? I will answer on Kathy's behalf, I think. I don't know if she'd answer, but we do use Canva is one tool that we have. I know Adobe has made significant investments in AI technology to drive efficiency in graphic design as well. So if you're an Adobe user, you may have access to some tools that enable some things like this. So depending on, again, what technology you already have. We had another question about what about small Instagram and Facebook-based businesses with little budget for AI? What's the easiest way to start? So maybe 2-part question and answer here, because who does Celtra target? Who are your ideal customers? Is it enterprise only? And then based on that, what if it's not a fit for small businesses, what would you advise they look at in terms of driving efficiency in their advertising?
So we find that the companies that really get the most out of Celtra are those that are trying to deliver scale, right? And whether that means broadening the channels that they're using to try and reach their consumers, or extending their reach, driving to more and more markets. So we really can help drive value and deliver on those business objectives. For those that are just starting out, maybe with a small D2C kind of organization, Canva, as you said, is a great targets that small and medium-sized. But we also can help as long as there's just like that little bit of scale that you're trying to produce.
Is there a minimum data set or number of ads or ad budget that you would normally think through in terms of, is someone, a qualified contact for your organization?
Yeah, I mean, I would invite people to just reach out and we can have that conversation.
Does Celtra integrate with any social media management tools, CRM, data management tools, anything like that? Are there any core integrations that kind of come with it?
Yes. So we often are asked to integrate with DAMs, with content management tools, in order to move content over from a proprietary system into ours. So we are doing that more and more. We also integrate with different channels. So if you have a Pinterest account and a Facebook account and a Twitter, et cetera, we can link to your account, and then any ads that you create within our tool get pushed into the account there.
A question, does Celtra work with healthcare companies? And if so, do you sign a NDA, BAA with them?
Certainly sign an NDA, of course. I think that there's there's a lot of opportunity for healthcare companies in the sense that there's a great deal of regulation, and they spend a lot of time making sure that that messaging is exactly right. So, we using our tool can help to make sure that that exactly right messaging is used across all of the content, and can help in a number of ways.
This is a really good question. So it says, is the tool making any suggestions in terms of color, size of elements, number of elements on creative based on previous performance of the campaigns? Or really, is any performance data going into that, or is it all human creative at the moment?
That's a great question. So it's actually something that we're working on. I didn't mention it in the pipe section, but we are looking at ways of tracking the performance of an ad in the field, and then using multivariate analysis, so going beyond A/B testing, to try and understand what's working and what's not, and then be able to give that feedback back to the team.
And it reminds me, there's a company we've used called Pattern 89 that did predictive ad performance. So the human would still do the creative, or in this case, human machine creative. And then you could actually run it through their predictive models, and it would actually choose the winners before you had to A/B test anything. Mm-hmm. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, Pattern 89 recently got acquired by Shutterstock. So Shutterstock launched Shutterstock AI. They're using their 400 million images to actually, I think they integrate with Facebook, and they can build predictive models around performance of ads right into Facebook kind of stuff. So it's such a fast moving space. But these kinds of things, like, I love the question because people are connecting the dots. It's like, okay, once you understand what's possible, then you start to think, oh, it'd be really cool if it did this, which I'm sure is what you spend a lot of time thinking about, because I was like, well, it'd be really cool if we could add this to the roadmap. And the roadmap, I'm sure, is like 4 dozen things long. You showed us like 5 of them. But that's one of the keys to the space, is once you understand AI, you start to think about marketing differently, and you start to think about what's possible.
Yeah, it just unlocks the imagination, right? As soon as you don't have to spend all your time worrying about this, we lift the restrictions of the manual labor, and so then that's when really inspiration can come, right? That's our ultimate goal.
There's a book called Prediction Machines that I'll often recommend. And in the book, they talk about the future of work being telling a machine what to predict and then knowing what to do with the prediction. And that basic premise is the machine doesn't know how to solve things. Like, it doesn't come up with problems to solve. It doesn't decide on its own that it wants to figure out how to intelligently automate advertising creative. Humans look at and identify problems and then understand what AI is and figure out new applications, new things to build. Just like you can now start to look at problems differently, or different repetitive processes, and think, oh, I could probably apply AI to this. And then you go find tools to do it. Like, that's where we're at in marketing today. It's still very early, and we need instances where we take a moment and we learn, because then we really start to explore what else is possible. Another question just came in: is this purely cloud-based, or can be used in a closed environment?
It is a SaaS tool, so we try to. We think it's more valuable to our customers to be a SaaS tool, because then we can constantly push out new features and capabilities to you throughout your licensing term.
Well, we're right at the time that we'd set aside for this. I mean, this has been fantastic. It's kind of everything I'd hoped for when we created this series, was really an educational look at AI. Do you have any final thoughts for our attendees, or people are going to be watching this on demand, in terms of how they can maybe take that next step in their career with the business with AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think that AI opens a whole new world of opportunity, and really creates the moment for us to reimagine the way that we work. And the best way to get started, and I think the most inspiring way, is to think about your process and your work as a blank canvas. And if you didn't have any of the constraints of the org structure and the old technology that you already are using, and the processes that you already have in place, and if you could just design everything completely from scratch on a completely white sheet of paper, what would that ideal look like? And then you can try to think about how technology can help you achieve that ideal. And I find that most teams are very resistant to this idea and are very tied to, oh, but this process and oh, but that system, right? But it's really amazing if we just take the time to unlock our imagination and just think about how might we accomplish the thing that seems so hard. We actually can find ways of doing it that are much simpler than we thought possible.
I love it. Yeah, rather than being, fearing it or ignoring the technology, be the one in your company that explores it. You're going to create career opportunities for yourself if you understand this stuff, because most of the industry still doesn't. Most of your peers don't. And so if you're the one that can bring the smarter solutions to the table, you're going to open up new doors for yourself and for what your company can achieve. So Gazelle, thank you so much. I mean, this was fantastic. I really appreciate your time. We appreciate Celtra's support, not only the Institute and the event, but of the community, and hope we get a chance to collaborate on more content down the road.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. I hope to see you all again soon.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We hope to see you for the next one. Have a great day.